I don't know what it is about being an adult and why adults always like to overcomplicate things, but recently I was asked the process of how to go about making panels like this, these dirty acrylic pour type panels. So I figured I would make a video that was so simple, showed you the whole process, and showed you how easy it is that even a 5-year-old can do it. Now here is everything that you need. Let's just jump right into it. I use 1/2-inch plywood for my panels. I do not prime them, I do not prep them in any way other than sanding them to 120 grit, and I cut them always to 10 3/4 by 10 3/4. That just makes the framing process a whole lot easier. Next, you are going to need some sort of medium, some pouring medium. So I use Elmers white glue. This serves two purposes. Number one, it eats up volume. And number two is as it dries, it does aid in adhering the acrylic to the panel. The next thing you're gonna need on your list is Floetrol. Floetrol is a paint conditioner, and what this will do is it will thin out the paint. It'll allow it to flow a little bit better, but it will also create some lacing effects. You might get some cell development out of it. It's just really nice to have on hand, and it just helps the paint flow a little bit easier. Thirdly, or next, you're gonna need some paint. So I use Liquitex Basics acrylic. I like this stuff simply because of the amount that I can get at this price point. And remember, a lot of this is going to slide off of the panel, so there's no need to use the really expensive stuff. Next, you're gonna need some mixing cups. I use none other than Red Solo cups. You can get these things at the dollar store. It's the best place to go and get them. Get a whole bunch because you're gonna need them depending upon how many colors you're gonna pour. Next, good old-fashioned water. Nothing fancy here, water. And lastly, I like to use these condiment dispensers to not only contain the paint, but to pour it as well. It allows me to kind of get some intricate details and swirls rather than just pouring straight out of the cup. Each one of these dispensers, I believe, is about 15 ounces. And again, you can get these at the dollar store, 3 for like $1.25. So it's a great way to store the paint, keeps it fresh, and it's easy to remember how to fill these things up with the very basic recipe I'm about to show you. Now, as far as the mix ratios are concerned, there are so many videos that overcomplicate this when it really doesn't need to be. What you can see here is I have a couple of lines. This is how far I fill up with Floetrol, and then this is what I fill up with Elmers before adding my paint, and then putting it into the bottle and topping it off with water. Couldn't be any easier.
In a later video, I'll do a full cost breakdown of these panels because we do sell these at craft shows, but for now, expect to pay $20 for the gallon of Floetrol, $15 for the gallon of Elmers, and approximately $10 for each of the 8-ounce Liquitex Basics.
Okay, it's at this point where you can see I've got kind of a pancake batter consistency, and that's what we're really looking for. Make sure, because of the way we layered our ingredients, that you're digging deep down into this cup to kind of make sure everything is mixed accordingly. And depending upon the color that you're using, this will mix faster for darker colors, whereas lighter colors like yellows and maybe bright, vibrant greens, it might take a little bit longer. But just keep mixing until your color is consistent. As you can see, that's pretty good. So now what we can do is transfer over to the condiment bottle and then add our final ingredient. Okay, what you should be left with is maybe enough room for a couple of ounces of water, and that's what we're going to pour in last. Have your water on hand. Okay. Pop your top on. Make sure that that is secured, and then give it a good shake. Done. That paint ready to rock and roll.
Before pouring, we need to do a bit of prep work. Firstly, You'll need painter's triangles, extra solo cups, anything really to keep your panels elevated off of your work surface. This will make manipulating the panels a lot easier and will also give your panels a place to rest for drying. Secondly, drop plastic is a must to keep your work surface clean. The excess acrylic won't stick to the plastic, so cleanup will be a breeze. And lastly, have lots of gloves at the ready. If you're going to attempt this with your kids, have an apron or an old shirt you don't mind getting paint all over. These pores, they make a mess, and if you don't end up wearing some of that paint, then you really weren't trying hard enough. When it comes to laying down your paint, the most critical step is making sure your panel is completely flooded with a base layer of paint. Any bare spots on your panel, and the paint won't fully cover. The brown you see us using on this panel was the exact same mixture you saw me mix earlier in the video. Now the key to this process is very simple. Keep adding paint until you get the composition you're looking for. If you do an initial tilt and it doesn't look right, add more paint and tilt again. The steeper and longer you tilt your panel, the more you'll stretch the paint and the more lacing you'll get. And the beauty of this technique is that you can't screw it up. Don't be afraid to let the paint slide right off of your panel. You can always tilt in reverse and the paint will stretch in the opposite direction. And lastly, don't feel compelled to rush. This watered down acrylic will have a fairly long open time, affording you a fair amount of time to manipulate the paint to achieve your desired design.
So it's been approximately 1 week since that last bit of footage of my daughter and I actually doing the pours. And I think that's an area that's often glossed over. And how long does it take for that thinned down acrylic paint to actually dry? And because we were doing these in the basement, my basement is climate controlled, it's approximately 65 degrees. It takes about 2 to 3 days for these panels to finally dry. So depending upon where you're gonna do your pour, give yourself at least 2 to 3 days before moving on to the next steps, which is gonna be finish. So what I have here are unfinished pieces. And as you can see, there is little to no sheen on these. That thinned down acrylic is naturally going to dry to kind of a matte finish. And really what we want to do is we want to bring all of the characteristics within these pours to light. So the finish that I prefer to use is none other than lacquer. I like a semi-gloss. I don't want it to be overly shiny, but a semi-gloss lacquer is going to be a really easy and simple way of going about finishing these. 2 coats is all that you need. Do 1 coat in one direction, do another coat in another direction, and that's it. You don't need to sand in between coats because lacquer is naturally self-wetting, which means once the first coat dries, the second coat will adhere to the previous coat. And I mean, keep in mind, guys, these are also going to be small art pieces that are just going to hang on the wall. You don't need that 1000 grit finish, ultra smooth, polished kind of finish. You don't need that. 2 coats of lacquer is all that it takes, and then you will have a nice sheen on these, which will bring the color alive. All right, there it is. Pretty easy process. Hopefully I did a reasonable job or a good enough job of making this seem less intimidating than it actually is. It's very simple. And if you have kids or grandkids, this is a fantastic activity to get involved with them, spend some quality time, and just let them explore, let them create, see what happens. If you are looking for a video on how to frame these things, then luckily for you, I do have that video for you. It's floating around here somewhere on the screen. So by all means, please click on that video. That would help my channel out a great deal. And other than that, go out there and move some paint, have some fun. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Wait, I forgot something kind of important. All of this paint that you splatter all over the painter's plastic, don't throw it away. Let it dry because you can do a lot of fun stuff with it. Upcoming video, I'll show you what I choose to do with it. In the meantime, wherever it is on the screen, go and watch that picture frame video. It really helped me out. I'd appreciate it. And for now, I'm actually done with this video. We're done. Wait. High five, kid. All right.